That's good. That is good. My grandpa Gentry couldn't hear very well near the end of his days, and I sympathize because my family can tell you I'm going in that direction with my hearing too. I was probably in junior high on the day we were at St. Clair Square Mall in Fairview Heights, Illinois. If any of you have been there, that's my stomping grounds growing up. And we were, my grandpa and I, doing what we love to do, and I still love to do, watch people walk by. And people are fascinating. My grandpa didn't just watch people, though he needed to comment on the people that he watched. And he would make me smile or giggle sometimes by his comments. And he also didn't grasp that while he thought he was whispering to me, he was actually very loud. And he watched them walk past, and I did too, and we'd talk about how they dress and what they're doing. And sometimes it was just embarrassing watching people. So don't dress like that if you go to Walmart, please. But one of these guys, I remember him being tall, big buff guy, if I remember right. And I don't remember what he was wearing, but I do know that neither one of us, my grandpa or me, would have ever been caught dead wearing that. And he said, "Would you look at that? Oh, but would you look at that?" And I just, "Grandpa, I think he could kill us," as he walks right past us. Old people are feisty. And I know I'm not young anymore. I clearly see myself in my late 20s. I just believe that I can't be this old even. One more story, though. I was just a couple weeks ago in Springfield walking out of a rehab place after having visited somebody in our church. And I was walking out of his room, out of the hallway, and then to the vestibule, the opening area that goes outside, and I was about to get to the doors, but I saw a lady, an older lady, gray-haired lady, sitting on a bench near the doors that I was going to, and I couldn't hear her as she's talking because I'm far enough away, and I'm walking closer to her, and as I'm walking closer to her, I see this just sweet, innocent old lady who probably would be saying on the phone as she's talking, "Why, yes, dear, of course I'll bring over the chocolate chip cookies to you. I'll be right over." And that's what grandmothers say. I don't want that to be offensive if you don't talk like that. That had to be what she's saying. And I get closer to her, about to pass her then and walk out the door. And now I hear her. And I hear her and I quote on the phone, "I'm liable to punch her right in the face." And I was shocked that this sweet old grandmother figure was using those words. I kept walking, of course, out the door to my car lest something would go down right there between me and the old woman. Old people can be feisty. It was just a couple months ago, I was talking about children here, and glad to. God bless our children. But today, I want to talk about old people. Why? Well, I'm glad you asked, because in Joshua chapter 12 and 13 and 14, as we've been studying, we're going to get to somebody in just a minute. Joshua chapter 12, the kings who have been conquered are listed. Chapter 13, the land begins being divided up between the tribes. Everybody gets their allotment of the inheritance as the Lord declared it so. The one exception was the tribe of Levi. The Levites were God's special people. They didn't get a plot of land. They got some cities and pastures for their animals. They were the servants of the Lord, and he would care for them even through the sacrifices, the food sacrifices of the people. So it begins with the retelling of the land allotments given to the 2.5 tribes. Remember them on the east side of the Jordan, Reuben, Gad, and half tribe of Manasseh. Then it comes to 14, and it starts actually divvying it out to the people now who are in Canaan. Which tribe would get which tract of land, and it continues through chapter 19, really a long section that we will pretty well blow over fairly quickly. But even while the land is being given out, it talks about the land that still needs to be conquered. Why does the land still need to be conquered? Why? I thought Joshua swept through and took all the land. He conquered it, yes, but there are other reasons that come into play here, and you can see just a verse, verse 13 of 13, but the Israelites did not drive out the people, and he names them, so they continue to live among the Israelites to this day. So even though they at once blew through and conquered them all, it's still land to be conquered, and some weren't doing the job. It's sad, and it will become a pattern for Israel that will come to bite them on down the road. So anyway, you get to chapter 13. When Joshua had grown old, it says, the Lord said to him, you are now very old, and there's still very large areas of land to be taken over. Now, most old people, just so you know, don't want to be reminded that they're old, but when the Lord tells you the truth, you're old, just accept it and move on. There's still land that needs to be conquered, and if the Israelites by now are getting tired of fighting, tired of following the Lord into battle, tired of having to live like nomads, they just want to settle down for final sake. Let's just settle down and let's get to what we need to do as a people who are now in their own homes. Well, good. Then it maybe start prodding the younger folks who are, have vitality and energy. They're just young, and go get them, kids, go get them. But here's an interesting thing right about now, chapter 14. Joshua, as an old man, is visited by another old man. It's not like they didn't know each other before. They've known each other for a long time. It's not like they probably weren't, bumping into each other because they've been down this road together till this point. It's just probably that we haven't heard of this other guy for quite a while now. Do you know who the other old man is in chapter 14 that visits Joshua? You don't have to shout it out. I just wonder if you know in here. It's Caleb. If you're a student of the Bible, you know, don't you? Caleb and Joshua, from what they had done in the past. Starting in verse 6, listen to some of this. This is what he says. You know what the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, this chapter 14. What the Lord said to Moses, the man of God, Kadesh Barnea, about you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to explore the land. And I brought him back a report according to my convictions. But my fellow Israelites who went up with me made the hearts of the people melt in fear. I, however, followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. So on that day, Moses swore to me, the land on which your feet have walked, when he was doing that back then, will be your inheritance, and that your children and that of your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God wholeheartedly. You keep hearing that? We'll come back to that in a future time. He's going back over history. That's what old people like to do. They go back over the old days, and he says, hey, Joshua, you remember? You were with me. The Lord, with Moses, sending them into Canaan. They hadn't even seen it yet. So go explore the land. Come back and tell us what it's like. They came back, the 12, one from each tribe, came back. And 10 of them said when they got back, whoo, it's too much. We can't do it. I mean, the cities are fortified. The people are giants. I mean, we look like ants compared to them. They could squish us. I mean, we cannot do it. There's no way we can do it. And they started pushing the fear through the people, and pretty soon everybody's melting with fear. Everybody, they're believing them. Only 2 who came back said, yes, we can take it. They trusted God. God will provide this. We can conquer it. The only 2 were Joshua and Caleb, but the fear had already been going through them. But you know what the people did when Joshua and Caleb said that? You students of the word? Do you remember? They hoisted the 2 of them on their shoulders and danced around with them and sang their praises. Do you remember that? No, they didn't. They picked up rocks ready to kill them. They wanted to stone them. That's why God sent them on this near 40-year trek until the oldest faithless ones died in the wilderness, so finally a new generation who could trust God could take Canaan, and here they are. There's only 2 old crusted men who made it this far. Everybody else has died. Now these 2, with all the youngins, are here in Canaan following God. Caleb has some more to say. Keep reading. Now then, just as the Lord promised, he has kept me alive for 45 years since the time he said this to Moses while Israel moved about in the wilderness. So he was 40, 45, the 40 years of wandering almost, and the 5 to 7 years of this, the conquering. So here he is, and he says it. Here I am today, 85 years old. I am still as strong today as the day Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now, give me this hill country. Now give me this hill country that the Lord promised me that day. You yourself heard then that the Anakites, those giants, were there, and their cities were large and fortified, but The Lord helping me, I will drive them out just as he said. But spoiler alert, you can go read it if you want. Joshua blesses Caleb. Caleb did what he said he could do because the Lord would help him, and he and them conquer the giants and the land and take it. Caleb is feisty, huh? But that's not so much feisty as faithful. And I know some of that in those first verses sounds almost like he's bragging. Look what I did. Look what I did. Joshua, you remember, look what I did. But no, that's faith talking. Look what I did with God as my helper. Look what we did with God leading us. And some of that last part might sound like arrogance, like I'm going to take it, I'll do it. But that's faith again. I'm old, but I'm fit. I'm old, but I'm ready. I can still fight. Give me the land. I got it. God will help me. And it's not so much about his great abilities in his old age as his faith in his old age. And I want to be more like Caleb when I'm that old. I want to come back to Caleb, I think, later, so give me a chance later. But let's look at this great man of faith, and let's talk about old people. I'll do the talking, you listen, but you think. Old people, but not just old people who are faithful in their old age. And while I do that, I want to talk about Annabelle Kivett for a minute. Some of you know her. Some of you have met her. And many of you, I think, have not. She doesn't get to come anymore. She can't be here. She was here yesterday, and some of you were here, but she tried to come this morning and just couldn't. I said, Annabelle on the phone, I said, Annabelle, what would you tell the church? What could I advise the church for you? What would you say as a 100-year-old woman of faith? And she said, Proverbs 3, 5 and 6, trust the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways acknowledge him or submit to him, and he'll make your path straight or direct your path. And good advice. Listen to that 100-year-old woman say it. This is a woman who has trusted the Lord for all of her years since the day she first believed. Some of her years were filled with some hard times, some tough circumstances, some heartache and some tears. But look at her now. And if you've seen her, wow, at 100, still trusting God, thanking him every day when she wakes up just for the day. And she's told me many times about her parents, how they raised her as people of faith to raise her kids, her as a person of faith. They were faithful, they were good. Talks about her dad who didn't get as much education as we did. But he was smart and he was spiritual and he was a student of the Word. He didn't do just what some of us do, read the Bible. He studied it. He was a student of it who learned to know it, love it, quote it, and live it. Annabelle's kids and grandkids and great-grandkids can tell you even today how much faith has been a part of her life and how much she prayed for them, all of them, to be people of faith. And if you were there earlier, you would have seen not just Annabelle, she wasn't there, but her daughter, Sandra, and her daughter, Rhonda, and her two boys there this morning, Keno and Reese. And I know her prayers for her family are that they would grow up to honor God. And if you want to honor Annabelle, even as she lives, then you live a life of faith in Jesus. Follow her example because it's a good example. Like Paul said, follow my example as I follow Jesus. Now, Annabelle loves to read the Bible, but reading is more difficult now. She loves to pray. She prays a lot. You might say she's alone. She would tell you the Lord is with me. Even as she's alone, she's not really alone. She prays and constantly thanks him for all he's done for her and prays that he will take her home soon. Because she wants to fall asleep one night in her bed, and you can pray that prayer too, and God would just take her home that same night. She's ready to go. She's ready to meet him, and a sweet reunion that'll be with him and all who have gone before her, who also are people of faith. She's ready to meet God that she has served all these years. I know this sweet woman in the times we have met. I've got to visit her, and she is a woman of prayer. She prays. She has prayed for me. And I've said this before, and it brings me to tears sometimes, so I might struggle. I did in there, but that's all right. If you know me, that's no big deal. Outside of my family, I'm not sure anybody has prayed for me more than Annabelle. And I got to tell you, she's been a friend to me and a sister in Christ. She's encouraged me. But I know how much she prays because she has told me, but also, as I often do, I'll go visit somebody at a hospital room in their home maybe, at a graveside, and sometimes the last thing I do, sometimes if I can, I'll pray with them. And so I got a chance. I knelt down next to her. I grabbed her hand. I said, Annabelle, I'll pray for you. She shocked me and she said, I want to pray for you. And I sat there and listened to that wonderful woman pray for Tony. And Annabelle and I disagree on some things. Don't get us talking about politics because that doesn't end well. But we agree on this. We are sinners who do not deserve the grace of God. I don't know her past. She tells me some things. She doesn't know my past, although I've said a few things. But we know ourselves, and we know how unworthy we are of the grace of Jesus Christ. God loved us so much, He sent His Son into the world to die for us, to cleanse us from sin so that we could be saved. And if we are saved in the end, I'll speak for Annabelle and Tony, it'll be because of the grace of God, not because of our goodness, not because of our goodness. So I'll stop to encourage you. You should be saved by grace through faith. Believe on Jesus Christ. Give up on your sins. Turn your back on that. Be immersed. Be buried with Him in baptism. Live a life of faithfulness as Annabelle has. And also, let me say this. If you ever get a chance to visit some of these folks who don't get to come here anymore, you should do it. If you ever think like you're having a bad day and it's hard to be you, how about going to visit them? And if you don't know that's a blessing, ask Jack and Susan Hayden or David and Darla Mayberry or John Tedford or some of you in here who've been to see some of these people like Annabelle Kivett or Annabelle Gleghorn or Frances Lafferty or Thelma Conroy. Go visit some of these ladies and others. They will bless you. You sit with them for a while and you listen to their stories and they'll bless you. You'll walk out of there better. I promise you. Thinking about Caleb and Annabelle, and I just want to talk about some old people and how they are faithful. I hope you're in this category if you're older. But first, these are quick. First, faithful old people look back at what God has done, and they remind themselves often of the stories of bygone days. And not just that I did it, look what I did. It's God brought me through that. If I am here today, it's God. He got me here. The second, faithful old people stand right where they are in faith and gratitude, just grateful to be alive. Just grateful to be alive. And old people can tell you, they tell me often what they can't do. They know what they used to do, and I'm starting to get an inkling of that in my own life. But what I used to be able to do, I can't do. And old people will tell you that. They can't do what they used to do, but boy, what they can still do is incredible. And they can remember what has happened in the past and remind us youngsters. They can also encourage those to live a life of faithfulness. And they can also pray. They can also pray. And boy, when old people pray, God works. I think some of us here don't know how there are others praying for us while we are here enjoying this. I promise you there are some people in their homes praying for us here. And if God has given this church a measure of success, then I just wonder how many of those old people have brought us to this point. Third, faithful old people look ahead. They trust what God has promised, and they are looking forward to that day. You may think the faithful are always looking backwards, the old days. No, the best days for them are still ahead. The good old days are in the future. The faithful ones who are trusting God, they are looking forward to the day when they see Him face to face, and how great a day that's going to be. Now, I don't know that any of them are looking forward to the process of dying. I don't know anybody who goes, bring that on, that's going to be great. None of us wants that. But what death will bring us, where death will take us, that will be glorious. And we're looking forward to that, those who are older among us. Some of you young people think like, I'm going to live till I'm old. It'll go fast. And someday you will be facing your death too, so be ready for it. And watch the old people, how they live and how they die. There's a song by Karen Peck and New River. Starts like this. I don't know that I will ever understand it, why life always happens like it does. Even though I know we're only here for a while, how come it never seems like long enough? I don't know just when my time is coming. Still, I know God has a plan for me. I don't know what leaving looks like, but I know this: you won't have to wonder where I'll be. I know I'll be there, in that place that Jesus promised He would prepare. It's beyond imagination, all the glories we will share, and I know I'll be there. You don't have to know the song, but that is a song of the faithful. And the older we get, the more ready we are to go. And if you're young, you may not know it yet, but there's folks here ready for that day. And where will we be on that day? With the Lord. And Annabelle and I can tell you, on the day we die, even if people cry, we're going there to be with Him. And there's nothing better than that. Having lived your life for Him, united yourselves with Him, where He has taken away your sins and given you His Spirit, we, people of faith, are trusting Him to take us home on that day. So on that day, don't worry about the us. We'll be there with Him. What about you? What about you? Let's stand and sing. Come if you need.
Walking in sunlight.